All right, so now I have my stepper complete. So if we click up here on the 2, it's going to navigate us to 2. We click on 1, it's going to bring us back to 1. Hey everyone, this is my SharePoint questions, and today I'm going to go over more UX UI of a Power App. I feel like, a lot of people know how to create Power Apps, but I think the UX UI Power Apps is lacking. So if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please do that. I'm going to keep creating videos. I might branch out into Power Automate in the future and maybe even some framework. Maybe we'll get into that. But right now I'm still focusing on Power Apps because there's so much content to go over. So today I want to go over the UX UI of a large form in Power Apps. And say we're using it on mobile, so we'll have a mobile device. Right now I have, 3 screens. And all 3 of these screens are actually one form. I just kind of broke it up into different sections. So for each screen, I broke up each part of a form. Now this is literally just one form in SharePoint for me. So this is literally a SharePoint form here, and I have some data in here. But I just wanted to say, okay, this is a rather large form. I mean, I'm sure people have even larger ones. So when I wanted to figure out the UX UI of a form, what did I do? I went to Google. So I went to Google, and the first search here, not the ads, the first search here, I'm going to try and live by. So we're going to kind of go over this. So first we're going to group your questions into sections. So I did that already. I did group my questions into sections. I have 3 sections now on 3 different screens. Make location visible. So we want people to know where they are in the form, when it's almost complete. Don't make questions out of focus. I think that's, obvious. We're not going to do that in Power Apps. Use a stepper. Let's create this in Power Apps using a stepper. We can do that. That looks pretty simple, right? We can just add a couple circles, write some text, and through each of the screens we can create that. I mean, it seems pretty simple. Set expectations before the start. I guess we could write instructions at the beginning if we wanted to, but I'm probably going to skip this. We can do that later. Add help text to make it understandable. We always do that in Power Apps. We add help text or flyout text. And then don't stop people from clicking send. So that's kind of like the required fields. We want people to send in data. We don't want to reject them if they forget something. So we'll try and do that. So let's get back to Power Apps. So I have 3 screens, right? And all of these are just forms. They're just forms. I set them up as new as default. And you can see, we might have a lot of data. So let's go ahead and create some buttons to navigate. So at the end here, I'm gonna say next. And this is just going to navigate to screen 2. And we're gonna make it fade. So if we do a comma here, we can fade. And I know all of this seems, common sense, but it's the common sense part that I normally struggle with. I can get the other parts. So we have our next button. So if we start at the beginning now, we have a form. It's on new. We can click next. It brings us to the next screen, and then we click next again, and then finally we have our description. And then I guess we need a submit button, don't we? So let's make a little bit more room for us for a submit button. So I'm just going to copy that button here and do submit. And then we'll get to that later because we're not going to do a normal submit. We're going to actually do a patch statement. And so we'll patch each of these answers. So you can just imagine if we had a really large form, right? This is more of a demo. But if you had a really large form, you could have a very large stepper, as they called it in Google, that blog that we saw. So this is really simple actually to recreate, but I'm just going to show you how I would do it rather quickly. We would come into the icons and grab a circle, and maybe we'll copy paste that 3 times. So we'll do that 3 times, and we're going to make it a lot smaller. So we're going to literally, I'll just copy it so we get the same length. or the same size of each of these circles. We're going to do our own little stepper. And we're going to add some labels in here, and it's going to be much smaller because this is going to be on the phone. And the text is going to say first is event. Now, if we go back to that Google article, I kind of like the way they create the look. So you can see, you know, they have a blue circle, and they also have down here on the left side like green check marks. But here they have a blue circle. They have some text and then a line, and it's grayed out, and then the next circle is grayed out, and so forth. So let's go ahead and do that. So to draw my lines, all I'm going to do is come down here and get a rectangle. So I'm just going to get a rectangle and make it really small. And probably, let's see, if we go to the height, we'll make it a 2. I'm just going to make a line like that, put it in between. We can push this back over. All right, so we have a little stepper here. So one thing I'm going to do is I am going to, let's take a, did they add numbers in between? So yeah, they said 1, 2, 3. Let's do that. Let's add the text in there. And I know this seems rather easy, but it's these little simple things that make your app so much user-friendly, and people want to use your app if you just do these little small things. So we have a 1 in there. Let's make the color white. And maybe the font size is a little bit smaller. And now we could turn this into a component, right? But I'm not going to do that for this video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all these parts. I'm just going to click on the first label, and I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to select each one of these parts. Now that I have them all selected, I'm going to press Control G, and that's going to group them all together. So now it's actually one whole group for our stepper, right? So you just want to align these numbers. I'll just align these numbers correctly. I can, okay, so this kind of gets into more, okay, Power Apps is like fighting me, right? So how do I align these correctly? So I'm going to go to the first label. This is label 2. I'll just rename it just for simple. Label 1. And so label 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the y-axis is equal to label 1.y. And that's going to fit that in there. The 3, the same thing. I'm going to go to the y. I'm going to say it's equal to label 1.y. And there we go. Now they're all perfectly put in there. And so we could do that throughout the whole thing, right? All right, so now that we have it grouped, what I want to do is on the first line here, I'm going to change the color, the fill. I'm going to change it to white smoke. That's actually an option in Power Apps. It's actually a color that we can choose. So white smoke again. And for the text, I'm actually going to turn that to like a gray so they can still read it. So maybe like a dark gray. There we go. We'll do a dark gray so they can still read it. So now they know that we're on event 1 in our app here. All right, so we're on 1 event, first part of our form. We could have a very large form. You know, your stepper could be who knows how long. And we could probably programmatically put this in here, but I'm just going to keep it simple, and we're going to do it manually. There's one thing that I know a user might do, and they might actually click up here to do navigation, right? So what I want to do is I want to highlight the 1, the circle behind it, and the text. So let's see if I can get that. The circle and the text, label 1. I'm going to change the on select to navigate to screen 1. And I want it to fade. So I'm going to do that on each one of these parts. I'm going to do that on the 2 and the 3. And I'll probably fast forward on this for you. All right, so now I'm going to take this entire group and I'm going to paste that on each of the pages next. All right, so now I have my stepper complete. So if we click up here on the 2, it's going to navigate us to 2. We click on 1, it's going to bring us back to 1 if we click on 2. So now we have different ways to navigate, and I think a user might actually accidentally, just not even thinking about it, they're going to click there and say, no, I got to go back. And we can let them go back by using the stepper. So now we have a full navigation there in our stepper. Okay, so now that I have my stepper completed, we're going to use a patch statement to submit all of our data. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to each one of the data cards, and I'm going to actually label each one. So text event, and this just helps me. I feel like you should do this no matter what, but I'm going to do it this time just to kind of help me with my patch statement. So I'll probably fast forward through this, but I'm going to rename each one of my data card values. All right, now I renamed all my data card values. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a simple patch statement. It's going to be very simple. So we're going to patch. And what are we going to patch? So we're going to patch our SharePoint list. My SharePoint list, if we go back to it, is called events. So we're going to patch events. Then we're going to do a curly bracket, and we're going to say this is event name. So event name comes exactly from my SharePoint list. So if we check out my SharePoint list, you can see that it's event name. And what's event name going to be? It's going to be txtEvent.Text. And we're going to do the next one. So the next one is the date. So date is equal to dteDate.SelectedDate. All right. So now that we have inserted our patch statement, one thing you could do is once your patch statement is correct or your formula is in a correct format, you can click Format Text, and this really helps you read what you're doing. So this formats it for you automatically, right? This is a little trick. You can patch events, and then we can see each one of our SharePoint column names. So everything before the colon is our column name in SharePoint, and it's exact. On the right side is what it's called in Power Apps. So each of these are my data values in Power Apps. So now that we've created our patch statement, we can go back. Let's fill one out. We can say this is a brand new entry today, and we'll fill out our form. I'm just totally making things up. Road, we'll give it a random zip code. We'll click next. EventType, social gathering, social media platform. We'll put it on Facebook. It's outdoor. We'll click next, and pretty much we're just going to hit submit, and that's going to write to SharePoint. So if we go back to our SharePoint list, we can see we have now written to SharePoint. This is our brand new entry today. But the main thing I wanted to show in this video was the stepper. What we're doing is for large forms, and normally if this is on the PC or if it's on your mobile, you want to have a stepper and you want to say where you are in the form. So the main purpose of this video is the UX UI of the stepper. Pretty much what we're just following is what the first blog article says on Google about how you want to use a stepper and let people know where you are in the form. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this was helpful. I know it's rather simple. To me, it's very simple, but it's like these little tiny things that can turn your app from basic to professional. So next time you're making a long form, create a stepper. You could make this a component if you wanted. But for this instance, we just made it into a group. We just turn it into a group and allow people to step through their form if they'd like. So we have a complete form. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this is helpful. Keep designing your Power Apps. See you next time.